In this lesson, we will be dealing with the origin of the earth, the second session. In the earlier session on the origin of the earth, we have discussed few theories on the origin of the earth, such as nebular hypothesis of Kant and Laplace and tidal hypothesis of Jeans and Jeffreys. These theories of the origin of the earth are related to the concept of nebula and the tidal and gravitational attraction of the bigger intruding star on the surface of the sun. In this session, we are going to deal with some more theories of the origin of the earth, which either related to biparental origin or one which are related to more than two stars or heavenly bodies in the origin of the earth. One, to understand the recent concept of nova, supernova and Cepheid and their role in the evolution of solar system. Secondly, to study the recent and modern theories related to the origin of the earth. In 1939, the British astronomer Hoyle put forth a hypothesis according to which the planets of the solar system have originated from the explosion of supernova. According to Hoyle, initially there were two stars in the universe, namely the primitive sun and the companion star. The companion star was of giant size. The primitive sun and the companion star together constituted the binary system. The energy which is emitted by any star in the form of heat is generated by the process called as nuclear fusion. In nuclear fusion, the hydrogen nuclei are closely combined with each other to form helium. With the passage of time, all the hydrogen nuclei of the companion star were consumed in the process of nuclear reaction and it violently exploded. Nuclear fusion was going on in the primitive sun and the companion star, but the rate of nuclear fusion was many times greater in the core of the companion star. The nuclear fusion is responsible for the explosion and the increase in light or luminosity. Stars with short abnormal luminosity are called as nova, and when the explosion and light are extremely intense, then they are known as supernova. The violent explosion of the star is termed as supernova. Due to the explosion of the companion star, now supernova, enormous amount of gaseous matter was thrown out, which started revolving around the primitive sun. The gaseous matter coming out due to the violent explosion of the companion star, that is supernova, changed into circular disk which started revolving around the primitive sun. Thus, the matter of the disk became the building material for the formation of the planets, satellites and asteroids. The expansion of the exploded gases was more in the direction of the primitive sun. As a result, the gaseous matter comes out within the gravitational attraction of the sun and later on condense to form the planets and the satellites in course of time. Thus, planets of our solar system are formed due to the condensation of the matter thrown out of the supernova due to the violent explosion. The planets of our solar system were not formed from the primitive sun, but were formed from the matter thrown out of the supernova due to nuclear reactions and violent explosion. This theory fails to explain peculiar arrangement of the planets on the basis of their size, similar direction of the rotation, as well as the plane of revolution and the path of the planets. Planetesimal hypothesis of Chamberlain and Molten. This hypothesis tries to explain not only the origin of the Earth but also the atmosphere and the hydrosphere, that is oceans. According to this theory, the Earth was originated as a result of coming together of Sun and other star. Due to its high temperature, the Sun experiences eruption of gases at periodic intervals. These eruptions are called as prominences. Another big star happens to pass by the Sun. Severe tidal disruption took place in the mass of the Sun. The main force for the ejection of the small jet or the planetesimal from the Sun was due to the tidal force exerted by the approaching star on the outer surface of the Sun. The passing star by the Sun drew the jets towards forward along the line of movement. The planetesimals followed the intruding star. The solar tide subsided when the intruding star moved away from the Sun. The matter that is ejected out from the Sun condensed into small particles called as planetesimals. Planetesimals developed nucleus around which scattered tiny planetesimals collected. Different planets were thus formed through the aggregation of planetesimals around the separate nuclei, and the Earth is one such planet. According to this theory, the source of hydrosphere is also planetesimals. The water was obtained from the condensation of the atmosphere. Water vapor started collecting in the depressions, which ultimately formed oceans. It is argued that if the planets have been formed through the planetesimal accretion, then they should have a much lower angular movement than they actually have. The process of origin of the atmosphere, as suggested by this hypothesis, is also not acceptable. It is the modern and most popular theory related to the origin of the universe. It is also called as expanding universe hypothesis. Edwin Hubble in 1920 provided evidence that the universe is expanding. As the time passes, galaxies move further and further apart. The galaxies move apart from one another as the empty space between them expanded. As the universe expanded, the hot radiation in the original fireball also expanded with it. Similarly, the distance between the galaxies also found increasing. Therefore, the universe is considered to be expanding. The Big Bang theory considers the stages in the development of the universe, which are: 1. The initial stage, during which all the matter forming the universe existed in one place in the form of singular atom or a tiny ball with small volume and infinite temperature and density. According to this theory, everything in the universe emerged as a point known as singularity. In the second stage, at the Big Bang, into a tiny ball exploded violently, leading to huge expansion. It is generally considered that the event of Big Bang took place 13.7 billion years ago. The expansion continues even the present day. As it grew, some energy was converted into matter. There was rapid expansion with the fractions of a second. Within 3 lakh years from the Big Bang, the temperature dropped down to 4500 Kelvin and gave rise to atomic matter. The universe became transparent. The expansion of the universe means increase in the space between the galaxies. H.N. Russell, an American astronomer, propounded his binary star hypothesis in the year 1937 to remove the shortcomings of tidal hypothesis. According to Russell, the planets have not been born from the Sun. He suggested that there was another companion star of the Sun, and the two together formed a twin star. A third star. Russell is of the opinion that there were two stars near the primitive Sun in the universe. In the beginning, the companion star was revolving around the primitive Sun. Later on, a giant star or the third star named as approaching star came nearer to the companion star. The direction of the revolution of the approaching star was opposite to the direction to that of the companion star. The approaching star might have been at a far greater distance from the primitive Sun. Thus, there would have been no effect of tidal force on the primitive Sun, but large amount of matter of the companion star was attracted towards the giant approaching star because of the massive tidal force or gravitational pull. As the giant approaching star came nearer to the companion star, the gravitational pull and the tidal force continues to increase, and hence the bulge on the outer surface of the companion star started growing towards the giant approaching star. When the giant approaching star came nearer to the companion star, large amount of matter ejected from the companion star due to maximum gravitational force exerted by the giant approaching star. The ejected matter started revolving in the direction of the giant approaching star and thus opposite to the direction of the revolution of the companion star. Later on, planets formed from the ejected matter. In the beginning, the planets might have been nearer to each other. The matter that might not have been ejected from these planets due to their mutual attraction, satellites might have been formed from the matter. Thus, this theory believes that planets are not born from the Sun. The third star, that is the approaching star, was too far from the Sun to have an impact on the latter. The most serious limitation of this theory is its inability to account for the removal of Sun's companion star from its control and for the retention of the tidal filament that is later condensed into planets revolving around it. This theory also fails to explain the present position of the planets. According to this theory, all the planets should have been formed roughly at equal distance from the Sun. According to him, the Earth and the solar system formed from the gas and dust particles and the dust cloud, which is referred to as dark matter. He assumes that the origin of the gaseous cloud and the dust particles might have been formed from the matter coming out of the stars and meteors. The Sun during the galactic revolution captured the dark matter of the universe. The dark matter of gaseous matter, dust particles, had their own angular movement. The dark matter after being attracted by the Sun during its galactic revolution, started revolving around the primitive rotating Sun. These dark matter were called as interstellar dust. In the beginning, the gaseous cloud and the dust particles were not well arranged and stabilized, and hence these were revolving around the Sun separately. Gases being less in volume were more destabilized and less systematically arranged. The dust particles, after being combined and condensed, were changed into a flat disk which later started revolving around the Sun. The flat disk of the captured dark matter started revolving around the Sun under the combined impact of three types of motions. The first one, the rotational motion of the Sun itself. The second one, the gravitational force exerted by the Sun on the disk of the dark matter. The angular movement of the dark matter of the disk. Thus, under the impact of these three types of motions, each and every particle of the dark matter of the universe started redistributing itself on the basis of mass, density and dimension. Particles having larger amount of centrifugal force were thrown out on the margins of the rotating disk or dark matter. Around the Sun, while the particles having small amount of centrifugal force were attracted towards the band of disk nearer to the Sun. The intense heat of the Sun dispersed the gaseous particles towards the margin of the disk. The intense heat also formed heavy particles which remained in the inner bands of the disk. Collision among the dust particles started the process of aggregation and accretion around the bigger particles, which becomes the embryo of the future planets. But the gas particles could not condense and they could not be organized due to their continued motion. With the passage of time, these embryos captured more and more matter and thus grew in size to become asteroids. The asteroids were still inside the disk, were revolving in the revolutionary direction of the disk. These asteroids further grew in size due to continuous accretion by nearby matter around them, and thus they became planets. Some of the matter still remained in the disk after the formation of the planets. These matters were condensed to form satellites of the planets. Since the lighter matter were pushed towards the margin of the disk and heavier matter were pushed towards the inner band of the disk, the planets formed in the inner bands of the disk were also of higher density than the planets of the outer band of the disk. The gravitational attraction of the primitive Sun was incapable of capturing the dark matter. Meteorites and asteroids were formed as a result of disintegration of some planets, and not that the planets were formed out of the meteorites and asteroids. There are no traces of the remnants of the dark matter could be discovered. In the year 1942, A.C. Banerjee put forth his theory. According to him, the Sun and the planets have originated from Cepheid. Cepheid is a star that is 5 to 20 times larger in size than the Sun. There is a regular pulsation in the Cepheid. Another star came closer to the Cepheid, due to which the pulsation in the seafed increased and it becomes unstable. This resulted in the ejection of large amount of material, tidal attraction, that ultimately condensed to form the Sun and its planets. The velocity of the tidal ejection was so high that the Sun and the planets were freed from the gravitational influence of the seafed. According to this hypothesis, the revolution of the planets is related to another star which in course of time receded away into the space. Alfvén tried to explain the origin of the planets with reference to electromagnetism. There is a magnetic field surrounding the Sun, and in early times the magnetic attraction of the Sun was greater than the gravitational attraction. The speed of the rotation of the Sun was also faster than the present. Due to its gravitational attraction, the Sun attracted the atoms of nebula in the space. These atoms of the nebula got surrounded by extensive cloud of atoms whose extent was roughly equal to the extent of all the planets taken together. According to the laws of motion of charged particles in a magnetic field, the ionized atoms collected in the equatorial plane of the Sun at a distance approximately equal to that of Jupiter and the Saturn from the Sun and started revolving around the Sun. Due to the presence of the revolving atomic matter around the Sun, in course of time condensed to form different planets. The magnetic field of different planets also attracted another atoms, thus forming the satellites. Gerald Kuiper, an American astronomer, suggested modification in the hypothesis put forth by Vijaya and suggested the hypothesis in 1951. He believes that condensation in the nebulous ring around the primaroidal Sun took place. In other words, the planets are older than the Sun. The primaroidal matter, the primaroidal Sun and the nebula had a similar composition consisting primarily of hydrogen and helium with low content of heavier elements amounting to not more than 1%. As the nebula cooled, it contracted and got divided into a number of separate clouds or protoplanets. Each planet originated as a collection of solid particles at the center, around which extended an extensive envelope of gases. The protoplanets were of different size but were bigger than the present planets. As the protoplanets contracted, the satellites were formed close to the planets through a similar process. The direction of the rotation of the original nebula was anti-clockwise, that is, the direction of the planets also. While the planets and satellites were formed, the central mass was slowly condensing and developing into a star, that is the Sun. Atomic reaction in the star generated heat in the interior part and it started radiating energy, thus becoming luminous. The remaining part of the nebula and the ejected particles were driven away into the space by solar wind of radiation. The latter gases of protoplanets were also driven away. Similarly, the heavier parts of the protoplanets assumed the form of the planets. Complete removal of the lighter gases from the planets closer to the Sun, resulting in their higher density. The planets at a greater distance retained the part of these lighter gases and thus have a lower density. The Earth is one of the planets of the solar system. From the discussion of these theories, it is observed that the Earth was formed at the same time as the Sun and other planets of the solar system. The foregoing overview of various theories trying to explain the origin of the Earth indicates that the basic assumption of the early scholars like Kant and Laplace are once again finding support through the modern theories. The general observation that solar system has not been formed through some special accident, but has been formed systematic contraction and condensation of a solar nebula is being accepted by the increasing number of scholars.